Welcome back to AI Takeover. You know, we always love diving into the world of AI.
Absolutely.
But sometimes it can be a little unnerving.
Oh, for sure.
Especially when AI doesn't quite get things right.
Well, yeah, it can be pretty unsettling when the algorithms go astray.
Right, and today we're going to be looking at what happens when AI gets it wrong.
Yep.
And for this deep dive, we've got two really interesting articles from criticallycurious.com.
Oh, nice.
One from PixelPia and the other is from Sven.
Okay, great.
And they're titled, Oops, My Algorithm Did It Again, and What Happens When AI Gets It Wrong.
It makes you wonder, right? Like, we often think of AI as this almost infallible force.
Yeah, making perfect decisions.
Exactly, like some all-knowing oracle.
Yeah, but as we're going to find out today,
yeah,
it's not always the case.
Definitely not. It's more like a tool, really.
It is.
And like any tool, it can be used effectively or, well, not so effectively.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we really want to kind of unpack today is, why AI makes mistakes in the first place.
That's a great place to start. Both PixelPia and Sven actually touch on this idea that AI doesn't think like we do.
Okay.
It relies on recognizing patterns in data.
Okay.
And making predictions based on those patterns. So the quality of the data it's trained on is absolutely crucial.
Oh, yeah.
If the data is biased or flawed in any way, the AI's output will reflect those flaws.
That's a really good point. And PixelPia actually gives a really striking example of this.
Oh, I'm curious.
It was Amazon's AI hiring tool.
Oh, yeah.
That ended up penalizing women.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah, and apparently it was because the AI was trained on historical hiring data.
Right.
That reflected existing gender biases.
I see. So it's like the AI was learning from biased data and perpetuating that bias in its decision.
Exactly. And it's a classic case of garbage in, garbage out, right?
Definitely. But with some pretty serious real-world consequences.
Right. And so it really highlights the importance of having, carefully curated training data.
It's like teaching a kid bad manners.
Oh, yeah.
They'll just keep repeating those bad manners until they learn better.
Right.
And if we're not mindful, AI can end up perpetuating and even amplifying societal biases.
Right.
Which is not what we want.
That is not what we want.
So even if we have pristine data, even then, AI can still trip up.
Oh, really?
Because it lacks something we humans take for granted.
What's that?
Common sense.
Ah, okay.
It struggles with context and nuance and often takes things literally without understanding the subtleties of human language.
Oh.
And behavior. And Sven actually brought up that example of Google Photos.
Oh, yeah.
Mislabeling black people as gorillas.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Wasn't that a PR nightmare for Google?
A big one.
And it really highlights, the danger of AI making decisions without a full understanding of the real world.
Yeah, without that common sense, it can make some pretty serious blunders.
Right, and and this lack of common sense.
Yeah.
I guess it leads to another problem.
Oh, what's that?
AI doesn't know when it's wrong.
That's a good point.
It'll deliver incorrect information with the same confidence as if it was accurate information.
That's a problem.
I know. Sven calls it the overconfidence problem.
I like that.
Yeah.
And he actually gives this really chilling example.
Oh, tell me.
Of a lawyer who was using ChatGPT to do some legal research.
Okay.
And the AI confidently cited cases that didn't even exist.
Wow.
Which is obviously a huge issue in court, right?
Yeah, talk about being caught off guard.
Yeah, it really underscores the need for us to verify AI's output.
Yeah.
We can't just blindly trust it.
Right. And, speaking of trusting AI, both articles delve into this phenomenon called hallucination.
Hallucination. Interesting.
I know. It's kind of freaky, right?
Yeah, I've heard a little bit about that.
It's basically where AI makes things up.
Really?
It confidently presents completely fabricated information.
How does that even happen?
Well, it could be anything from fake historical events to bogus medical advice.
Oh, wow.
Or even fictional scientific studies.
That's pretty unsettling.
I know, right? It just highlights those limitations of AI's understanding.
So it's like it can process information, but it doesn't truly understand it.
It doesn't have that deeper meaning.
Not in the way the humans do.
So it's like it's a master of mimicry.
Okay.
Able to generate text that sounds really plausible.
Yeah.
But it lacks that deeper understanding.
Okay.
To distinguish truth from fiction.
I see. So it's like we need to approach AI with a bit of caution.
Exactly. And not just take everything at face value.
Yeah, we need to be critical thinkers.
We do.
when we interact with AI.
Yeah.
We need to be aware of its limitations.
Right.
And not just accept everything it tells us as gospel truth.
It's like playing a game of digital detective, right?
Exactly. We need to constantly be verifying information and
Yeah.
questioning AI's conclusions.
Well, you know what else? It's not just about AI's internal limitations.
What do you mean?
Sven also points out that AI can be manipulated
Oh, interesting.
from the outside
Okay.
through what's known as prompt injections.
Prompt injections, what are those?
Well, it gets a little technical,
Okay.
but basically, malicious users can craft specific prompts
Okay.
or inputs that can trick the AI
Okay.
into revealing sensitive information
Wow.
or even behaving in unintended ways.
I see.
Remember that example we were talking about?
Which one?
About the self-driving car that got tricked by a sticker on a stop sign.
Oh, yeah, that was a crazy one.
Right.
That's a great example of how vulnerable these systems can be.
Yeah, it really highlights those potential vulnerabilities of AI systems,
Yeah.
especially as they're becoming more integrated into our daily lives.
Exactly. As we start to rely on AI more and more for these critical tasks, we need to be aware of these potential vulnerabilities and develop strong safeguards
Yeah.
to prevent manipulation and ensure that AI is used responsibly.
Well, I think we've definitely established that AI can be a bit of a digital klutz sometimes.
Yeah, it definitely has its moments.
But before we jump into some specific examples of AI gone wrong,
Okay.
I wanted to just step back for a second
Okay.
and consider the bigger picture.
Sounds good to me. What do you have in mind?
Well, I'm curious about your thoughts on this.
Okay, shoot.
AI is obviously a powerful tool
Yes.
with incredible potential,
For sure.
but it's not infallible, right?
Definitely not.
So how do we navigate this,
Yeah.
this increasingly AI-powered world
Right.
without succumbing to either blind trust or paralyzing fear?
That's a really important question, and one that both PixelPia and Sven address in their articles.
Oh, good.
And I think the key really lies in finding a balance
Okay.
between embracing AI's capabilities
Oh.
and acknowledging its limitations.
So it's kind of like proceed with caution.
Yeah, proceed with informed skepticism.
Okay.
We always need to be questioning AI's outputs
Yeah.
and verifying information.
Right. And not just be passive consumers of the AI-generated content.
Exactly. We need to be active, engaged users.
We do.
And that also means demanding transparency
Oh, yeah.
and accountability from the companies that are
Yeah.
developing and deploying these systems.
Yeah, it's like the old saying, trust but verify, but applied to the digital age, right?
Exactly. We can't just assume that AI is always acting in our best interests.
Right. We need to be vigilant
Yes,
and proactive
absolutely.
in shaping its development and deployment.
Well said.
And it's not just about individual responsibility either.
No, you're right.
We also need to advocate for those robust regulations
Yes.
and ethical frameworks to guide the development and use of AI.
We need to make sure that AI is used for good.
Right, not for harm.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we've laid the groundwork here.
Yeah, this has been a great overview.
And we've kind of explored some of the fundamental challenges of AI.
For sure.
So I think it's time to dive into some real-world examples
I'm ready for that.
of AI gone wrong.
Let's do it. I've got some fascinating cases lined up. Some might even say amusing.
Well, that sounds like my kind of deep dive.
It's gonna be good.
Stay tuned, listeners. Things are about to get really interesting.
I can't wait. We've talked about the why. Now let's get into the what. What are some of these real-world examples of AI messing up? And remember, we're not just here for a good laugh, even though some of these are pretty funny.
Oh, you're telling me we get to enjoy some AI bloopers while also learning something? I'm all in. What have you got for us?
Well, PixelPia kicks things off with AI-generated recipes. Some of these AI cooking assistants are out here suggesting some really bizarre combos.
Wait, really? Like what? Give me an example. I love a good food fail story.
Okay, Sven actually breaks down a couple in his article. Picture this, a recipe that calls for chocolate cake and salmon.
Okay, now that's just wrong. I mean, funny, but wrong.
Yeah.
It reminds me of when my kids were little and they used to mix all sorts of random foods together thinking they were master chefs.
It's a perfect analogy. The AI is kind of like a kid in the kitchen just experimenting.
Yeah.
You know, it might see that chocolate and salmon are both popular, but it doesn't get those nuances of flavor profiles or like what actually goes together.
So it's following the data, but missing that human touch, that culinary intuition.
Exactly. And without that, you end up with recipes that might technically be edible, but definitely won't be winning any awards.
Okay, so maybe not the best dinner party menu, But on a more serious note, Sven also talks about that IBM Watson case, which I remember was a pretty big deal at the time. IBM was touting Watson as this revolutionary tool for cancer treatment.
Yeah, the ambition was huge. Watson was supposed to analyze a patient's medical data, cross-reference it with mountains of research, and then recommend the most effective treatment options, like a super-powered medical consultant.
It sounds amazing in theory. So where did it all go wrong?
Well, it turned out that Watson was recommending treatments that were either unsafe or just ineffective. It wasn't malicious or anything. It was more a case of the AI not being trained on enough data, like a diverse and comprehensive data set.
So it was working with incomplete information, and that led to those potentially dangerous recommendations.
Exactly. It struggled to really understand the complexity of individual cases and also how rapidly cancer research is evolving.
It's a good reminder that even with good intentions, AI can't replace the expertise and judgment of human doctors. We still need that human touch, especially when it comes to healthcare.
Yeah, that human oversight is crucial in any field where AI is making really important decisions.
Okay, this next one's a bit unsettling. PixelPia goes into AI-powered predictive policing, which is supposed to identify high crime areas and potential offenders before crimes even happen. It sounds a little like a recipe for disaster.
It can be, unfortunately. The issue is, if you train an AI on historical crime data that already has racial bias baked in, it's going to continue those biases and even make them worse.
So instead of reducing crime, it could actually reinforce existing prejudices and lead to over-policing in certain communities.
Exactly. The AI might flag certain neighborhoods as high risk just because of past discrimination. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It's like using a broken compass to navigate a really sensitive landscape. You're going to end up lost or even worse, cause harm along the way.
That's a great way to put it. It really shows the need to be extremely careful and to really understand those consequences when we use AI in areas with such a high potential for harm.
We can't just assume that algorithms are objective or unbiased. We have to look at the data, see what potential impact their predictions might have. It's about being responsible with this technology.
You got it. Okay, I think we need a break from these heavy topics. Let's bring some humor into this deep dive.
Oh, thank goodness. I was starting to feel a little doom and gloom about AI.
No worries, there's plenty of room for laughter, especially when it comes to AI's everyday blunders. Those situations that we humans handle without even thinking.
Let's hear it. What are some of AI's funniest fails?
Both articles have a bunch of great examples. Autocorrect fails, of course, those are classic. But then you have the image recognition mishaps, like AI mistaking a chihuahua for a blueberry muffin or a cat for a pile of laundry.
Okay, those are pretty hilarious. Can you imagine the AI trying to figure that out? Like, is it a furry muffin? A baked cat?
Exactly. It just goes to show how AI can struggle with visual recognition, things that are so easy for us humans.
It's a reminder that AI doesn't see the world the same way we do.
Right. It doesn't have that common sense understanding to know what's a dog and what's a pastry. And without that, it can make some pretty funny mistakes.
Okay, I need another good laugh.
What else have you got?
How about some chatbot miscommunications? Sven tells this story about Microsoft's Tay, an AI chatbot that was supposed to learn from Twitter interactions. Well, it didn't take long for Tay to go totally off the rails, spewing offensive and hateful content.
Oh yeah, I remember that one vaguely. Wasn't that a major PR disaster for Microsoft? It was a huge wake-up call for the whole AI community. It showed how important it is to be careful with the data AI is exposed to and how things can go wrong when AI is set loose on social media.
It's like they forgot how toxic the internet can be, and Tay just absorbed all that negativity.
In a way, Tay's downfall was a learning moment. It made developers really think about the ethical side of AI and the need for safeguards to prevent those kinds of mishaps.
Well, we've had some laughs, but we've also uncovered some pretty serious examples of AI going wrong. It seems like there's a real tension between its potential and its limitations. So how do we move forward responsibly with this technology?
That's the big question, right? I think both PixelPia and Sven have some good insights.
I'm ready to move from the problem to the solution. What can we do to make sure AI is used ethically and effectively?
First things first, we have to remember that AI is just a tool. It's not a magic solution. It's not here to replace human judgment or critical thinking or ethical decisions.
So no more blindly trusting AI or assuming it's always right?
Exactly. We have to be informed, skeptical, and engaged in how AI develops in the future. We need to demand transparency, accountability, and ethical practices from those who are building these systems.
Because in the end, AI is a reflection of us,
Yeah.
our values, our choices. And if we want it to be a force for good, We have to be mindful of those choices and what they might lead to.
Well said. And that actually brings us to the next part of our deep dive, where we'll explore those practical steps we can all take to navigate this AI-driven world.
Sounds good. I'm ready to move from cautionary tales to some actual advice. Stay with us, listeners, as we dig into the solutions and strategies for a more responsible AI future. Okay, so we've looked at why AI makes mistakes and some examples of those mistakes, some funny, some not so funny. But now let's talk solutions. What can we actually do about this? Both PixelPia and Sven have some advice on how we can navigate this world where AI is everywhere, how to do it effectively and responsibly.
It's easy to get caught up in all the hype, right? Or even the fear around AI. But we need to be realistic. We need to understand both what it can do and what it can't.
Okay, that makes sense. So where do we even begin with that?
I think Sven makes a good point when he talks about being skeptical but informed. You can't just accept everything AI tells you. Check it, double check it. Look for other sources with, reliable ones.
So basically, don't check WebMD, check with your actual doctor.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And be extra careful with anything that seems too good to be true, like deepfakes.
Deepfakes, yeah, those are getting harder and harder to spot.
Right, and Sven actually gives some good tips for fact-checking in this AI age, I guess you could call it. Stick to sources, like academic journals, real news organizations, government websites, those kinds of things.
Those are definitely good places to start. And, it makes me think about what PixelPia was saying about AI's limitations. It can find patterns really well.
Yeah, that's its strong point.
But context, nuance, common sense, forget about it.
Yeah, and Sven adds that even small changes to data, what do they call adversarial attacks, I think?
Yeah.
Those can totally mess up AI's predictions.
Oh, right, like that self-driving car and the sticker on the stop sign.
Exactly. Shows you how AI sees things differently than us humans and how vulnerable it is.
To manipulation.
Yeah.
So it's about knowing where AI is more likely to trip up, being extra careful in those situations.
Yeah, you got to know its strengths and weaknesses, right? So you can interact with it in a smart way.
I guess it's kind of like working with a colleague who's really good at certain things but not so good at others.
Yeah. You adapt your approach, right? Play to their strengths.
Okay, that makes sense. And PixelPia also talks about the need for companies, the ones making AI, to be more transparent. Like, we should know how these things are trained, what data they're using.
It's like a recipe, right? You want to know what ingredients are going into the dish.
Yeah, especially if AI is making big decisions, we need to know how it's making them.
Transparency builds trust, right? It helps make sure AI is used ethically. We should know when we're talking to a machine versus a human, and there have to be rules, ethical guidelines to prevent bias and discrimination in AI decision-making.
So it's not just on us, the users, right? It's on the whole system.
Absolutely. We need to learn about AI, be smart about the information we consume, and hold those developers accountable. We got to push for regulations and frameworks that prioritize, people and make sure AI is used for the right reasons.
Like a seatbelt for AI, basically.
Exactly, a safety net. Look, even with all the things we talked about today, all the problems, I'm still optimistic about AI.
Me too. It's a tool, and it's up to us to use it right to make sure it benefits everyone.
And remember those funny AI fails we talked about? They're a good reminder that even when it messes up, AI can be kind of funny. It can lighten things up.
Yeah, those are like learning moments. For the developers, for us, everyone. They show that AI isn't this all-powerful, scary thing. It's more like, a reflection of us, Our good ideas, our mistakes, all of it.
And they get people talking about what role AI should have in our lives, what we want the future to look like.
So as we wrap up this deep dive on AI Takeover, the message is AI is powerful, can be amazing, but it can also mess up. Don't be afraid of it, but don't blindly trust it either.
Learn about it, be skeptical, ask questions.
Yeah, exactly. We got to shape AI responsibly, all of us.
We can do this. AI can be a good thing.
And on that note, we want to hear from you. Have you had any funny AI encounters, good or bad? And until next time, keep exploring the world of AI. And remember, the future is in our hands.